Hello, my friends. Jacob's here one more time. Thank you for pressing that play button and spending a little quality time with me today so we can discuss the Trump miracle. The Trump miracle. That is what will be heralded on high. Today, the big news broke. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that, go figure, for democracy to flourish, states can't just take off people from the ballot that they don't like. Go figure. We knew this was going to happen. Today, exactly 3 weeks and 3 days after I said that it would happen, where I said it was very unlikely, we know. I said all of this stuff. Don't get too stressed out about it, because the story's not over yet. But there has to be some intrigue and some suspense. And we had the suspense, and today the suspense is over. Donald Trump himself on Truth Social said, this is a big win, a big W. Right? Remember, the W to McDonald's goes to the W to McDonald's now. It's a big win for America. This is very exciting. The 6 Colorado voters that argued that Trump had run afoul using a post-Civil War law, using this law, well, guess what? They can't. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold water. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was appointed by Trump, said because your position has the effect of disenfranchising voters. Justice Elena Kagan said that I think the question you have to confront is why a single state should be able to decide who gets to be president. They were not too happy about this. Chief Justice Roberts, you remember him, said he could foresee this as an issue in the not too distant future, a world in which some states would try to boot Democratic nominees from the ballot and others would use Sanction 3 to do the same to a Republican candidate. This is big news. It's historic news. Post-Civil War law type news. It's the Trump miracle, after all. This is something that I thought was coming. Now, why, of course, would I think that such a thing was coming? And it's not just because he was just awarded a menorah they had called the Prince of Peace. The Israel Heritage Group visited him at Mar-a-Lago, and they presented him with this great honor. This is the same organization that gave him the crown of Jerusalem a while ago. You know, that's supposed to be given to the Machachek, the person who's supposed to rule. This is the crown of David. This is the throne of David that's supposed to be restored in the end days. And it seems like he's the character that he fits the bill. Born on blood moons, all sorts of interesting things connected to Donald Trump. On February 8th, 2024, I said the Supreme Court will likely not support, and then I said disqualifying Trump from the ballot. You right? I mean, I did say this. You know, if you're new to the channel, this is something that I've been saying for a while. Hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share that video of the dream that I had. Before the election that he lost, everybody thought he was going to win by a landslide, but I had this weird dream, earlier, before the election and everything else. My fear was, because of his dream, that somehow he would lose and he would cry foul and he would, call in election integrity and it would be like a big thing. And then as we progress the story, that of course he'd be persecuted against and everything else, but then he would be restored in the end because of this dream I had. Take a look. So I have a dream. It's a very strange dream. I don't pay much attention to it. In the dream, and it was a couple of them, but this one was the one that stood out the most. In the dream, I, for some reason, was like with one arm was carrying like the casket of our president. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but it was open. But on the left-hand side of me, there was our president. So it was very strange. There was it was one in the casket with the casket wide open. There was also, I remember there being I noticed there was moss on the bottom of the casket, moss that was growing there. But in the dream, the president was smiling, he was laughing, he was having a great old time, and here I am carrying this, and I didn't understand. I'm like, oh, and then I woke up and I'm like, oh, I get it. It's gonna be like a fake thing, right? I have been getting everybody ready for Trump's victorious return, which once again, I don't know for a fact that this is gonna happen. For all I know, there may not even be another election, but for some reason I feel like this is the guy. he fits the bill. He fits the bill in every way, shape, and form. It seems like prophetically it's playing out. When I wrote on February 8th, 2024, that they will likely not support disqualifying Trump from the ballot, I also wrote, is the epiphany moment the miracle coming? And why did I do this? Well, I explained it on the show, of course, because, there was a part of Jesus's ministry where he started performing miracles, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. There's a connection between MAGA and another person in the Bible named Simon Magus, who performed miracles too. Miracles. He seemed like he was worshiping God and he was doing a whole thing. And that's why the irony is that MAGA is literally the word sorcerer, which is what Simon Magus was. I talked about this in a video a little while ago. But when I said that the miracles were happening, that they were coming, I said, is the epiphany moment coming? And then what happens 22 days later, which is just so bizarre, is that there are reports that there was like a literal miracle happening at Trump's event. Someone literally was like having a heart attack or a heart event and everything else, and Trump stopped speaking. And everybody was pacing, and then the whole crowd started singing Amazing Grace, and then the EMS workers brought him back from the dead, it seemed. The miracle. I found it interesting. That's why it says 22 days after I said, is the epiphany moment, the miracle coming. And I start Googling Trump miracle because I knew the Trump miracle was going to be a thing. And what do you know? Gateway Pundit puts out a whole article about how it's a miracle that all of a sudden all these people that used to hate Trump, all of these people that were like devout Democrats, like all of these stories of family members and everything else now leaving the Democratic Party and becoming Republican and becoming Trump safe. You have rappers, you have TV personalities, you have politicians, you have people everywhere kind of singing Trump's praises, as they did when Jesus was coming into town. Remember, they were singing Hosanna in the highest? So it's no wonder they're singing Amazing Grace when someone's being brought back from the dead. I mean, that's a thing, right? But don't take my word for it that miracles are happening. Trump himself said when he was wooing Virginia voters, he said himself, he goes, a carefully placed phone call, that could be a miracle. Yeah, we do plenty of those.
A properly placed phone call can work miracles, can it? We did plenty of them. Miracles, can it? We did plenty of them. We did plenty of them.
Our nation has achieved a medical miracle. A medical miracle. We have delivered a safe and effective vaccine in just 9 months. Safe and effective. This is one of the greatest scientific accomplishments in history. It will save millions of lives and soon end the pandemic once and for all. I am thrilled to report that the FDA has authorized the Pfizer vaccine. We have given Pfizer and other companies a great deal of money, hoping this would be the outcome, and it was. A great deal of money. Pfizer and Moderna have announced their vaccine is approximately 95% effective, far exceeding expectations. These vaccines are also very safe, very safe. American citizens participated in clinical trials that were far larger than normal and had no serious side effects. No serious side effects. The dedicated and independent experts at the FDA meticulously studied the results of the trials, and it has now passed the gold standard of safety.
They do plenty of miracles. The next part of the story is that the Savior has to ride into town triumphant on a donkey. And we all know that I've been talking for a long time since Tulsi Gabbard left the, since she was going to leave the Democratic Party, because when she was running for president, her dressed in that white, I did video after video about how I thought, she would be perfect for Donald. And then when she was leaving, I said, this could be the pick. I said, this could be the pick. So I've been saying, I think Tulsi's going to be the one for a long time. I have been, right? Leave a comment and let everybody know who's new. This is no joke. The speculation on this channel, it turns out sometimes to be right on the money. Right on the money. Not all the time, of course. But Tulsi would be a Democrat would be a donkey. If he would be the Machachek, whew, as they say, he'd be riding victorious on a Democrat. That's And there's a whole other side of the Tulsi story that I need you to know. The name Tulsi, when in Hindu mythology, it becomes the holy basil. It's the sacred plant. Tulsi marries, leaves the demon king and marries Krishna. That's like in Hinduism. Krishna sounds a lot like Christ, doesn't it? That's the story, because this has to be a world story. Everyone has to be captured by it, and it seems like everyone is. Are you? It is an interesting and wonderful and just miraculous time to be alive. And maybe these miracles are going through the phone. Who knows? Who knows when we see stuff like this playing out? But it looks to me, call me kooky, it looks to me like it's a green light for the Trumpster. Except for the fact he had a little bump in the road. The Nikki Haley just took her first victory. Of course, after being crushed by, when Trump took 66.6% of the vote. That was the news. Nothing interesting or sus about that at all either. But, he downplayed the victory. He downplayed it because, D.C. only awards 19 delegates. It's not like the biggest deal in the world. In fact, I believe he was quoted as saying, Bird Brain is a loser, record low performance in virtually every state. DeSantis easily beat her in Iowa for a very distant second place. And then she ran up to the podium before she had a chance to do so and claimed victory. This is what Trump wrote, I guess, on Truth Social. And he said, I enjoy watching the Bird disavow her pledge to the RNC and her statement that she would never run against President Trump. He's got a point there. If you give your word, I would never run against President Trump because he's the best president around, and then you run again, your word isn't to be trusted. But then again, on the flip side of the coin, when you have a leader that's calling people bird brain loser, I guess it's not that big of a deal today, I guess he could say worse, but it's like I want to have a leader who's moral and just and wouldn't stoop to just name calling. Just saying, you made a pledge to the people that you were going to support me regardless. You said I was a great president, and then what happened, right? That's all you need to do. But look, if you're going to, people today, look, they want people that, that get engagement. That's what I'm learning. I'm learning that it's all about the engagement. And then sadly today, most people want the lowest form, the lowest denominator of engagement, And I got to tell you something. You should be careful where you're putting that engagement. You should be careful who you're trusting with that engagement. When you have all these celebrities that are connected to all the spooky, societies and all the big names and the big banking cartels and the this and that. And you have them and all of a sudden they're in the truther movement and, they're the ones that you trust. And they put out, like Russell, the red-haired Brand, put out, by the way, he put out a poll. He said, what substance would most benefit the current occupant of the White House? Ayahuasca, he said cocaine, and then he said cyanide. Cyanide's poison. Now this is a poll that's on X, and they're data mining. So he puts out a little honeypot for people, and of course there are going to be a lot of people that think he's just joking, and they'll hit that cyanide one. This is a terrible poll. It should have been taken down. Actually, one person commented, said you got to take this down immediately. But what I said, you ever wonder where the results of these polls go? I said, all those people who click cyanide, that could be interpreted as a threat. Am I correct? These are people that are saying that we should send cyanide to, but Russell Brand, he's not being held back. He's not, that's not getting community noted or anything else. Is that incitement? No. Oh, it's comedy today. I'm learning. But I put out a poem the other day, and I said, I've waited, debated, and anticipated a time when I'd stand on the front line as a sign to a people that have lost their minds, their souls data mined by trolls paid to report, spy, and lie, enemies of God, enemies of you and I, and that sadly so many people hold high. If their souls be corrupt, Lord, this is what I cry. Today you can get paid to lie, to deceive, to mock, to tear down. You can get paid on these social media platforms because it drives engagement. As Tim Pool said, engagement farming, being a troll, going out of your way to lie to people, deceive people, trigger people. This is the world we're in. So I guess bird brain loser isn't that big of a deal. But I will say, look, there's a lot with President Trump that needs to be looked at. And this is something I've talked about for a long time. Look at the connections to this man.
He's like this ancient king in the Bible called Jehu, who was kind of like a Trump figure. He was a powerful man. He was a leader. They anointed this guy Jehu king. He was kind of like a salesman. He was also a ruler and a warrior, and he had like an army that followed him. Was after. There was a tablet for Jehu that was discovered recently. This is a big thing. So they find Jehu in some kind of a pub. He's hanging out with other world leaders. It was probably like a summer. It was probably like Davos. And they anoint him with oil. They say, you're going to be the king. Jezebel, she hated the prophets of God. She was always looking to kill the prophets of God. But Jehu is the one that destroys Jezebel. He brings everybody into the temple of Baal. Like, brings all the big leaders and everybody, and he murders them all, sets the whole thing on fire. He wipes out Baal worship everywhere in the land. You can't do it anymore. And you know what he turns that temple into, the temple of Baal? Into a toilet.
In order that all who live may know that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdom of mortals. He gives it to whom he will, and he sets over in the lowliest of human beings. He gives the kingdom to whoever he wants. No matter how great you think things are, no matter how strong the tree is, when it's told to be cut down to the ground, there's a reason. But the root is still there. The story of Nebuchadnezzar, whether it's the story of Donald Trump or not, it is one that we need to heed. Because in the story, he does become like a beast. And I don't want you to become like a beast, Like, I don't want it, and Daniel didn't want it either. It wasn't like he was a big fan of the guy. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't exactly a righteous, holy man. Didn't really say whether or not, but he's like, please, hopefully this dream is about your enemies and not you. Because you're gonna lose everything in an instant. But if you repent, if you say, you know what, Lord, change my heart, let me serve the people, let me be a righteous leader. Because that's what ends up happening in the end. Nebuchadnezzar sees that it is the Lord that gives and the Lord that takes away. It is God who blesses and God who curses. It's the Lord that does all of these things. So serve the Lord and you're going to be okay. Love your enemies, even your enemies, as God loves you. Because in so doing, it's like a restoration of your own soul. We got to forgive, we got to be kind, and we got to understand that the old world is gone. There's a new world, there's a new earth, there's a new heaven, and we're entering into it. So when that period of judgment was over for Nebuchadnezzar lifted his eyes. It's very symbolic of when you lift your eyes, you're putting your sights on more than yourself. And we all could do that. And my reason returned to me. He started to realize, he's like, oh yeah, that's right, that God. It's time to serve that God. It's not to be corrupt anymore. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and I honored the one who lives forever. And his sovereignty is an everlasting sovereignty, and his kingdoms endure from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does what he wills with the host of heaven and the inhabitants of the earth. There is no one that can stay his hand or say to him, what are you doing? What's going on here, Lord? Nobody can say this. Nebuchadnezzar says, at that time my reason returned to me, and my majesty and my splendor were restored. When you start to serve God, when your reason returns to you, your splendor and your majesty, it's restored. And the glory of my kingdom, my counselors and my Lord sought me out. I was reestablished over my kingdom. Why? Because he humbled himself. And he remembered the Lord. And for the first time, after seeing everything that was taken from him, the Lord gives it back to him. Because he is going to now serve God. Now, I can't say the same for his kids. We'll get into that another day. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol the honor the King of heaven. For all his works are truth, and his ways are justice, and he is able to bring low those who walk in pride.
One really funny opinion, but there is in Lapland there is a group of the shamans there who do something called collective dreaming. The shaman told me that actually the best thing happened in this planet right now is the Trump to be the president, because before it will be another guy and everything looks similar, but he's so different than anything else. So he's the magician who waking us up. What do you think about that? That kind of theory.
Even that sorceress, known as an artist named Marina, she said that a bunch of shamans were dreamers together, and they say that he is the great magician that is awaking us up, as she says. People that you know are attached to all the spooky magic stuff, even they're saying it's him.
This is the new Moses. I mean, I'm still Jesus, but he's the new Moses. Pharaoh, let my children go free.
Somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China. I'm taking on China on trade. And you know what? We're winning.
In the midst of the 3 weeks, which is the time of the mourning of the destruction of the temple, we generally do not have live music. However, in honor of this prestigious event and the attendance of President Trump, we have determined that live music accompanying the anthems would be befitting of this occasion.
Love you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Please read it.
Okay.
Give thanks.
Give thanks to Hashem, for his work is good, his kindness endures forever. Presented to President Donald J. Trump for his extraordinary and heroic efforts, I like that very much, to help the state of Israel and the Jewish people. He and his family should be blessed eternally. From the Israel Heritage Foundation, July 10th, 2020.
What are you saying? What are you saying? I believe that God's going to place the people that are in charge when they need to be placed. And I believe there's going to be a huge flip of things. I got this idea, this video right here, where I have Trump pointing to like March 28th or whatever, and it says after Purim. I have a feeling that we're going to see so much shakeup. It's just a very exciting time to be alive, and I'm not stressed about it. As I said many, many times on the show, if you're a good person and you have love in your heart and you're kind and you're somebody who contributes and doesn't take away, the future is going to be bright for you. Whereas others, they may get the wrong end of the stick. You know, if you're a bird brain loser, it's not going to be too good for you. It's not going to be too good for you in the future, as I see. But you know, if you're a child of God and you're doing the right thing, believe me, God has us taken care of. All right, do me a favor, will you? Will you get yourself some merch? You can get yourself the God's Champion mug. It's in the description of the video. You can get anything. You can get all the shirts, the this, the that. Get yourself a copy to Colin. I say this all the time because this is what my life's work is all about. This is what the channel's all about. This is what my website's all about. Everything leads to this. And this is the year. It really is like a remarkable novel, and it was written for today. So get yourself a copy in the description of the video if you want. There's also links to my sponsor, trulyfreehome.com, where you get products that have no toxins and everything else. And if you enter code Jacob, you get 30% off. These are the ways that you can help. Of course, Patreon, PayPal, anything that you can do to help. It is very much appreciated. I say thank you and thank God for you. And I pray God blesses each and every one of you for just spending a little bit of time with me today. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the share button, make sure you're subscribed and check the bell for notifications to have the best day ever. Bye-bye.